I'm asked a lot about my name, Adarsh. It is an Indian name, so not a usual name for an American. I got that name when I went to India for the first time in 2001, and I was living in an ashram there, like a spiritual community. And my joke always is that the Indians will give you an Indian name because they cannot remember your Western name. So even though my birth name is John Anthony and my mother calls me Tony, the Indians in the ashram called me by my spiritual name, Adarsh. Adarsh means ideal. It's like an ideal, that thing that we want to aspire to. It doesn't necessarily mean that I am the ideal. It means that part of my individual yoga practice is to become an ideal person. So for me, the spiritual name is something that has really stuck because I live in the yoga world. I teach and work as a yoga teacher. So I've always maintained the same spiritual name, Adarsh. And it's a nice name because when someone calls me by that, I remember my greater purpose, to become that ideal. For me, yoga is everywhere. If I were to go for a run, I'm still practicing yoga. I'm still focusing on how to properly engage my body, how to properly breathe, and the mindset during that activity, such as running. My experience in anatomy and AIS and these types of modalities really comes from my need to teach my students at their level. I've had so many people come to me who were not quite ready to practice Ashtanga. Even doing a sun salutation may be too difficult for them. So I've really had to think to myself, how do I teach this individual? How do I meet the individual where they are? So that's led me to study more deeply anatomy. Oh, that person cannot do this particular posture. Why? Why? What is the issue here? So I've studied anatomy in order to understand better what the body can and cannot do and why it can and cannot do certain things. And I found this to be incredibly practical for my own yoga development. After understanding more about the ideal positions of the body, I've been able to create yoga practices that are more sustainable for my body. We all go through different phases of life. You know, some days we'll feel so open, so flexible, like we can do anything. Other days we'll feel very tired, very heavy, very stiff. And we want to adapt our practice accordingly. So I've always encouraged my students to understand their own bodies and how that changes day to day, how that changes from season to season. As a yoga teacher, it's very important that we're meeting our students where they are at. We're not teaching students our yoga practice. If I can do an advanced pose, it doesn't mean that my student should do the same advanced pose. I should teach my student according to where they're at. I've studied many different contemporary modalities. I've even taken up weightlifting as a way to understand that type of athlete. In fact, one of my real joys right now is teaching people who have no interest in yoga. So I will teach them different flexibility or mobility methods. I'll teach them different meditation methods that are yoga. It's really yoga. But we don't use the language of yoga. I'll use the language of their particular sport or training modality. And for me, that's a lot of fun because I'm secretly teaching them yoga. So the yoga training incorporates meditation, it incorporates breath work, incorporates yoga postures, and yoga philosophy. The goal of the training is to be very practical, meaning that at the end of the 200-hour training, the individual can walk in to a studio-like space and can teach a yoga class. a basic all-levels yoga class. This means that during the training, we will focus on yoga theory and philosophy, but mainly we'll be focused on yoga as a practice. The morning sessions are 3 hours. It will include an hour of breath work and preparatory practices, and then approximately 2 hours of asana practice, doing the yoga postures. The afternoons will be dedicated to equal parts yoga theory and yoga teaching. The yoga teaching incorporates teaching with the voice, so how to lead others through a yoga class, how to cue the students to do the movements. It will include how to observe and assess students, how to see alignment, how to observe students who may be in positions that are not safe. It will include hands-on practice, how to assist students with your hands, how to teach with your hands. It'll include such things as yoga therapy, which will mean anything from neuromuscular stretching techniques to therapeutic ball rolling, and how we might use that to assist students who have injuries, or perhaps students who are not injured but they're just stiff or out of shape, so that we can help them to build progressively a yoga practice that will work for them. You're welcome to join me next year for my 200-hour teacher training at Space Yoga. It will be a lot of fun. There will be moments that it will seem quite challenging, but that seems to be how we grow. It seems that we grow when things are challenging